Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is fuse, and this verb was suggested by the viewer Hassan Mohammed. Thank you so much for this suggestion. Now, let's take a moment and review some of the definitions or ways that we can use this verb. The first way you might encounter the verb fuse can mean to join or blend something or two or more things to form a single entity. As I thought about this first definition, I thought that there was a possibility you might have seen this verb used to describe the action of joining two kinds of cuisine or two styles of food to form one dish. This was, I think, rather popular uh, some years ago, still happening though, where you might have a restaurant fusing like Asian cuisine with Latin American, right? And they're trying to combine it into single dishes. A second way you might encounter this verb fuse being used could mean to have a group of atoms or cellular structures join or coalesce. Again, this meaning very specific and scientific meaning, but again, we've got that joining. Coalescing means coming together. So the definition there, not all that different than the first one. A third way you might hear fuse used can mean to melt a material or some type of object with very intense heat in order to join it with something else. And then a fourth way you might encounter this verb fuse being used can mean to provide a circuit or electrical appliance with a fuse. Now, this fourth definition would be really specific, I would say, to the work an electrician does. Not so likely that you're going to hear this used in everyday conversation with people. But for now, you should know that fuse is a regular verb. If you want to make the progressive form of this verb, you're going to drop the E on the end because we have a verb that ends in the pattern vowel consonant E. Then we'll add ing, and that forms fusing. The past tense and the participle form of the verb can be made by just adding the letter D, since this verb already ends in an E. Our base verb, fuse, ends in a voiced Z sound. This means the ED ending is just going to make a D sound, and I'm not going to add an extra syllable as I say it. The past tense and the participle form of the verb should sound like this: fused, fused. Okay. Now, I do have one phrasal verb for us to talk about. That phrasal verb is to fuse with. You'll see here the meaning is not all that different from what we've already discussed. So it can mean to connect or bond two things. An example of this might be, how will you fuse the old pipe with the new extension? This might go back a little more closely to that third definition where we were talking about melting something with really high heat in order to join it with something else. So here it sounds like two pipes are being connected. Now let's move on and do a little verb tense practice. Today we'll review the simple past tense and the present progressive. Let's start with the simple past tense. We use this verb tense to talk about completed actions that occurred at a known point in the past. The nice thing about making sentences in the simple past tense is that our structure stays the same no matter what our subject is. So in the affirmative, we'll see our subject, and then we're going to see that ed form of the verb. Here's an example sentence. The artist fused pieces of glass into his stained glass art to create truly unique pieces. So here we're talking about kind of something being joined or connected, probably with using heat to make that process occur. And he's, it sounds like, combining kind of different mediums into one type of art. Now, if you want to make a negative simple past tense sentence, what you need to do is start with your subject, use did not, and then the base verb. You can also use the contraction didn't. Here's another example. The vertebrae did not fuse in two places in the thoracic spine. Here's another area where we'll see this verb used a lot. It's in connection to medicine, sort of that process of many times bone healing, kind of growing together to form sort of one connection. And finally, if you want to make a yes or no question in the simple past tense, then we need to start with did, then we'll have our subject, and then the base verb. I always like to point out to my students, notice how we're not adding that ed ending in the negative or our yes or no question. Here's the yes or no example. Did designers fuse function and form to create this new model? Again, we're back to that idea of joining two things together, combining might be another good way to think of this. Now let's move on and make some sentences in the present progressive. We use this verb tense to talk about actions that are happening now or actions that are in progress during a time period that has not yet been completed. Sometimes teachers, textbooks, maybe other YouTube videos you've watched will talk about or call this the present continuous. And that's just fine. It means exactly the same thing. To make present progressive, though, we'll be using a present form of be and our ing form the verb. So you'll notice we need both parts or two parts here. So the reason I say present progressive with my students is in hopes they'll remember two P's mean two parts to the verb. So now the be verb has three forms in the present tense, so we're going to have to pay attention to our subject. This means if our subject is I, we'll use am and then that ing form the verb. But if our subject is you, we, or they, we'll use are, A-R-E, and then the ing form of the verb. Finally, if our subject is he, she, or it, we'll use is and then that ing form the verb. Here's another example. The company is fusing security capabilities deeper into its networking infrastructure. So this is the company here would be singular, right? Like an it. So that's why you see is. We're probably discussing something that is ongoing or something that is continuing. And so they're talking about sort of combining these two things together. Now let's take a look at making a negative present progressive sentence. To do this, again, you pay attention to your subject, you use the form of be that matches, followed by not, and then the ing form the verb. Here's another example. Brown dwarfs are not fusing hydrogen into helium in their core. So again, always look for real examples of our verbs being used. This was mentioned in kind of an astronomy article, so we'll see that kind of combination of science uses with this verb. And brown dwarfs, kind of like a fallen or failing kind of star, is how I understood that from the article, far outside of my expertise. Now let's look at making a yes or no question in the present progressive. To do this, we want to start with be, then we'll have our subject, then that ing form of the verb. Here's the last example. Is the restaurant fusing creativity with tradition? Again, that was sort of a question or something posed by a restaurant reviewer, and it's that idea joining together. Now let's move on and talk about some words and phrases related to our verb fuse. The first word we're going to start with is the noun form of this word. The noun fuse has the exact same spelling and exact same pronunciation as our verb. This noun can have a couple different meanings. So the first way to use it is back to that, I would say, closer to that fourth definition of our verb, where we were talking about something an electrician might use. So this would be a safety device that consists of a strip of wire that melts and breaks an electric circuit if the current exceeds a safe level. So Again, I am not a trained electrician, so my explanation is probably not going to be super helpful. But an example of how we might hear this used, um, it should be sorry, I always have a typo. The electrician will install new fuses next week. So these are items, again, sort of connected to all the electrical wiring in any kind of building, and it's there as a safety precaution. Now, a second way you might hear the noun fuse being used is to talk about a length of material along which a small flame moves to explode some kind of bomb or firework. It sort of gives you time to get back, get away before the thing explodes. And to help us understand that a little bit better, I've included a picture here, right? So you can hopefully see this little kind of green material. That is the fuse. So an example of this might be this length of fuse will give you several seconds to get to a safe distance. That's something you may encounter. But as I thought about this particular word, a couple phrases came to mind, and I think you might encounter. So you may hear to blow a fuse, and this can have a couple different meanings. One way people use it is to describe using too much power in an electrical circuit, causing the fuse to melt. So maybe if you notice all the lights going off in a particular place, you might hear someone say, "Did we just blow a fuse?" Right? Did it cause that fuse to melt and the electricity to sort of stop working in that moment? But there's I think, even more common way you'll hear people use it, and that is to describe the process of someone losing one's temper. So this is might seem like a funny thing, but I don't know if it's again sort of connected to this idea of what happens to someone sort of building up and causing a bit of an explosion here. So you might hear someone caution you, don't blow a fuse. It's an easy thing to fix. So here they might be cautioning or encouraging someone, stop yelling, stop freaking out. Nothing bad is happening. Related to that, you might hear someone described as having a short fuse. This is really meant to describe a tendency to lose one's temper. So this is describing someone who angers quickly. An example of this in a sentence might be, does your supervisor have a short fuse? And I hope the answer is no. I'm very lucky. Mine does not. He's a very calm, patient individual. But because I think that would be a very stressful work environment for anyone, right? If it seems like this person is going to explode like a firework at maybe the slightest error or smallest mistake. Thanks again to Hassan Mohammed for suggesting today's verb. I thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.